Josh, our friendship was built in the analog world long before we could ever even talk on a video screen with one another.
Yeah, no kidding. In fact, the talking on the video screen was the future.
It was fancy, like Demolition Man. It's like, it's like you can talk on the video screen.
Which, ironically, Demolition Man seems to be like the most enduring vision of the future so far.
Yeah, so far there's more restaurants than just Taco Bell, but
Right.
We'll probably find
We're heading
out.
there.
We'll head there. What I find really interesting is that there's a lot of games, a lot of movies, a lot of things that's talking about like post-apocalyptic future, and it's talking like the lonely experience when you're not in the room with people.
Right.
Even though you interact, it's like there's a distance between.
Right.
And we're almost seeing the frame of it right now because people they've been forced to learn other ways to communicate. So as human beings, we still do.
Right.
But the in-person experience can never be fully replaced.
Right. So join Brian and I as we launch out onto the loop and discuss this today on Curiosity Continuum.
Hey everybody, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Welcome to Curiosity Continuum. We are a podcast and movement started by two lifelong friends whose mission is to guide you through a changing world by helping you level up your contextual awareness and sharpen collaboration and problem-solving skills. Our conversations explore, examine, and reframe practical topics that help you learn something new and apply what you already know in a new way.
If you find these conversations helpful, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app and rate us, and please leave a review so others can join the community. And as always, you can find us on CuriosityContinuum.com and our social media accounts. Thanks for tuning in, and let's start the conversation.
Okay, so I don't want to denigrate like video conferencing tools,
Right?
Because they're actually
They're
really
helpful.
useful. They're helpful,
and we need them. Yeah.
but it's still not a full experience.
No, and we're talking today because we're actually in the same room recording, which I know a lot of people don't think that maybe they think we always are in the same room, and we hope they do, and a lot of times we know they don't, because if they know us, they know that Brian lives in Nashville and I live in South Florida.
You're giving away the secret sauce.
Yeah, giving away the secret sauce a little bit. But today, Brian's actually down here for a holiday, and his family is here, so we decided let's record some episodes.
Yep. So here we are. So when you meet somebody in person, there's that feeling like, hey, I really connected with this person, or
Yes.
you have an exchange. Now, because of things like Zoom, you're able to carry on those human conversations and kind of have that.
Right.
And obviously, there's like coaches, like for business or executive coaches or life coaches, and all they do is online business, and it's great because
And they can go anywhere in the world, basically.
their reach is good.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful model.
Yes.
And still, it's like there are little things that you still don't pick up on video, even as big of a highest resolution possible,
Right.
streaming into your home. There's little things that a person does when you notice when they're right across from you.
Yeah, it's a lot about nonverbal communication, because I think about at least 80 to 85% of what we do is nonverbal. I mean, you can just see somebody and know if they're engaged or know if they're like having a good day or a bad day. Sometimes on Zoom, you're just like, everybody looks tired,
Yeah.
because they probably are.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think there's less formality across the technology where you don't feel as engaged. So you're like, why am I putting forth the effort?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. I've actually appreciated that in this time when people realize that people have like children running around.
Right.
Or dogs barking.
Hey,
Like,
that's real life.
That's real life.
It happens.
I've appreciated that because some people have put up such a big facade, especially in their business life.
Right.
I'm perfect. I'm all together. And I've actually enjoyed to go like, hang on a second, my dog is barking. I'm like, we're good. We're all people.
And I mean, those are the things too that I think with people is that nobody's perfect. And to put the facade on that you've got it all together all the time is just a facade.
Yeah.
It's not true. You know, I mean, I know sometimes that we record, you hear our dogs barking in the background, or what you guys don't hear is us editing out a lot of the life that happens.
Exactly.
You know, somebody comes into a room that we're recording in and, you know, we're off the rails for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens.
It happens.
And we edit that down for the sake of listening because it's not interesting to listen to, for
No,
one.
not at all.
And it's not contextual to what we're talking about.
Actually, might be a good experiment to say, like, what do we talk about that happening in the background?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
Yeah.
different note. But, okay, so I've seen a lot of young people. Well, I say young people just because I see some people in my social media feeds,
Younger people.
younger-ish people.
Than us. Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting married.
Sure. They're
Right.
going through the beginning parts of their adult life.
Yeah,
Really.
I don't see anybody Like, I want to start my life together with somebody across the globe.
No,
It doesn't happen.
no.
There are certain relationships that you want
Well,
to be in the room.
And even with like a dating app, thank God I don't have to use stuff like this, because I honestly think if anything ever happened and I would never date again or anything because it's so crazy now, you always find people close to you, right? I mean, you don't want to date somebody that's across the country.
Because I still don't feel like you read people right.
No.
So let's talk about, so how much easier is it to pretend you're somebody else on a non-analog in-person medium?
Pretty easy.
So let's talk about examples about that, because I think the shiny examples, I mean, Instagram is a pretty well-known language around the world. You can really look super shiny doing stuff on social
Lots of
media.
filters, lots of things. You can have a different picture than is actually you.
Yeah, very planned, very whatever. There's actually a certain amount of planning you can do for video
Right.
that you can't do in person. Like, you see people stutter. You see
Right.
somebody have to rethink something. You watch the direction their eyes go when they're trying to reference something.
Right, right. And I mean, if they're like referencing something that's like true or false, or a lot of people also stumble over words and stumble over things, which is like normal. And I think when you're together in a room and people do that, it's more genuine. You're not just, it's not that it's not a show. It's not this like, and there are, I mean, hey, look, we all have presentations and things that we actually practice.
Mm-hmm.
Those are different. We're talking about like in-person interactions every day with people. Right, Brian?
Yep. And obviously for now, as people have to be a little bit more distanced,
Mm-hmm.
but we find it to be a close enough proxy to have human connection, but it's still not the human connection like we would think about it. Now, the younger generation, like my children, might say, yeah, this is fine. Like, I know how to do this and stuff. But I'll tell you what, everybody in my children's grades, when with lockdowns and things like that, they came out of school. They were learning remotely. They were learning virtual. Now, my children homeschooled, so they had more tools.
They had a little leg up on it because they already were used to that process.
But there was still so much learning curve for everybody.
Right.
You know that every student was just like thrilled to be able to go back to like an in-person learning environment, even with
Right.
all the different regulations and restrictions. And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, please. That tells you something, even if they're so used to technology and digital that they want the in-person.
Yeah, and I think too sometimes, let's say this is the way you only ever learned. Like you only learned remotely. I don't think you would have the contextual awareness to realize what you're missing until it's put in front of you again.
Fair.
Or if you had it all the time, you don't realize what it is until you're gone. I think that's the one thing I think I really noticed about recent events is that some of the stuff that we were complaining about, like getting in person to like a sporting event or going to a concert or anything like that, all the little minutia we would be like, oh, look at the traffic, look at this, I got to sit next to a sweaty guy, all this stuff is actually really important.
You manage your environment.
And you really are missing it. Like I mean, I'm missing just going out and being around people and not worrying that I'm going to catch something that's going to kill me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
it is stressful now too. And I think that's it's just another layer of stress that is on our modern life.
Yeah, that's true. What's interesting, so like if you have like text,
Yeah.
send read messages or read receipts or whatever like
Right.
that, or you see the email, I've had to work more with my children to verbally acknowledge somebody.
Sure.
So, like for example, like Isaac, my son, will sometimes talk to a friend. Friend says hi. I say, Isaac, are you going to acknowledge that they're there? He goes, well, I heard them. It's like I said, I know you heard them.
Yeah, but they didn't know you heard them.
Right.
Right.
And so sometimes in digital things, like, oh, I see the person read it,
Right.
or I see that they're good. And there's some things that they take as cues. It doesn't mean that you've communicated, though. There's a lot of assumptions, I think, that you build into it, going like,
And that's happened to me, like actually on the digital medium front. So, like I sent a text to my mom one time, and it said like she read it at this time, right? She never got back to me all day, and I text her again or later in the day, said, "Hey, what's up with this?" And she's like, "Oh, I just saw this text from right now."
oh, right,
Because I didn't follow up on it, because I actually was taking too much faith in the technology.
oh, right.
So it was the other. That's more my problem, I think, than I always love to communicate like with people, here and now. I would much rather do that. I'd much rather pick up the phone and talk to somebody than I would over text. Although I realize that everyone is kind of, even though I have anxiety and all that, I think that a lot of people like texts because they're like little emails that are just there waiting. Like I'm that way. But I check my phone. I also realize I check my phone way too much. Like, especially when I'm off of work. I'll check it like 10 times an hour, 15 times an hour.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I just got to put it down.
It makes you wonder what's managing what. Are you managing the device or is the device managing you?
Right. And I think that goes together with this kind of more this in-person talking. Like we should be talking more in person together.
Mm-hmm.
But although, I mean, the technology is great and it's useful and it needs to be there, it's just should be a part of the way we communicate, right?
Yeah, it can be something useful, but it can be a disruptor if we don't actually say that we're the human being in the room.
Right.
We're going to say, this is when it can be contacted. This is when not. This is the type of notifications I'd like to get. There's a lot of coaches, and I'm one of them, that says, like, you should shut off notifications. Like, I have most of my notifications on my phone shut off except for, like, my alarm clock,
Sure.
a text message. I don't have email notifications. That stuff drives me bananas.
Yeah, I know.
I get so much email. It's like,
Right.
I would just be,
You just check it once or twice a day or 3 times a day or whatever you need to.
Yeah, to be able to go say, okay,
Yeah.
here it is.
Yeah, this is important. If it's super important, they'll text you.
Yeah. Imagine
and
that.
you'll know them, I also think that it's important to, if you do this all day long, if you're on Zoom all day long and you're on these technologies all day long, it's important to unplug from that for a while. Like Brian said, turn notifications off. Just get a little different, You don't have to always be the same way. Like when you go home at night, this is something I've been really trying to do. When I go home at night, I'll even be talking to Brian sometime on the way home and I'll be like, look, I pulled it home. I'm putting the phone down for like an hour or 2.
Yep.
And, Brian's like, yep, have a good night, man. And we just unplug from that for a little bit. So that is because it's the different type of communication. It's a little more, it's just nice to have a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything.
Yes. It's not everything encroaching on everything else.
Right. So what do you think, Brian? You think that's a good point to put a comma here, or do you want to have a closing thought?
No. You've trained me pretty well not to have a closing thought after you say put a comma, because it usually gets edited out. So,
all right. So we will think about this, and you guys think about this too.
Until next time, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Curiosity Continuum.